Do you miss the good old days of PlayStation 2 platformers? The running, the gunning, the spinning, the jumping. Jak and Daxter and Ratchet Clank were at the forefront of these types of games back throughout the early 2000s. And a lot of us grew up with these games, falling in love with them for their unique spin on the platforming genre at the time, introducing guns and action into the charmful concept of controlling a character and jumping over things and collecting stuff. The games industry has sort of moved away from this style of game, which is a little bit unfortunate. Though of course I might be nostalgia drunk, we have to pretty much rely on indie developers to make anything that resembles something of a Jak or Ratchet game. And I've been playing a game that recently released that is a complete homage to the PlayStation 2 action platformer era, that is even a fusion of both Ratchet & Clank and Jak and Daxter. This would have to be Akimbot. My god, this is a PlayStation 2-ass feeling game. The devs have perfectly captured the essence and DNA of a PlayStation 2 action platformer, clearly inspired by games like Ratchet & Clank and Jak and Daxter, and have served up one delicious turkey roast. In this game, we follow the adventure of mercenary Exe and his amateur criminal sidekick Shipset. And straight from the get-go, looking at the main character design here of Exe, you instantly think, wait a minute, is that the space rat? Exe is the sole reason behind grabbing my attention towards Akimbot, because at first I thought that this was some kind of Ratchet & Clank fan project. I mean, even looking at the animations of Exe closely resembles PS2 Ratchet animations. We've got the running, we've got the jumping, but we've also got some other tools at our disposal, like a dash, a wall run, grapple hook, and even a spin jump a la Jak and Daxter. This game's focus is very much on the platforming, with the movement feeling incredibly fluid. It's just pure fun to run through these levels using these mechanics, trying to perfect the course as if you were playing a Crash Bandicoot level. Instead of a wrench, we can swing this laser shank, which even provides us with an aerial down slam attack very similar to Jak's, and of course, we have guns. The arsenal here is small, with 4 weapons we can switch between on the fly, and 4 special guns requiring a resource to be used that can be gained by killing enemies. These special weapons can be purchased by spending bot coins collected from crates throughout levels at the vendor. Because this game's movement is just so fluid beyond that of what you'd find in a Jak or Ratchet game, I can't stress how good it feels to zip around, switching between guns, and blowing stuff up. Exe will automatically strafe when a gun is equipped, and you can zoom in for a bit more accuracy by holding L2. Because there's generally quite a few bad guys on screen at once, and depending on what difficulty you're playing on, you can die quite fast, the game is actively encouraging you to keep moving and to keep shooting. As I said, the arsenal is small. You've only got 4 basic guns, like an assault rifle, a sniper rifle, a Gatling gun, and a rocket launcher. There's no weapon modding or weapon leveling as you would come to expect from a Ratchet & Clank game. You do have those 4 special weapons that can be upgraded with the currency, but with the small amount of weapons that are here in this game, they're just simply fun to use. This is definitely more of a Jak 2 situation, with choosing what out of the 4 primary guns is the best to take on the situation at hand. The level design here is good. The stages are quite linear and laid out in a fashion where you start at point A and get to point B, then move on to the next level. You can't return to locations or planets as you would in a Ratchet game due to the nature of the game's story. There is a great variety of sci-fi biomes and levels, like an island, a swamp, ancient ruins, a space factory. In total, there's 17 chapters all taking you to different places, which is way more than I was expecting. The runtime is also pretty good. It's anywhere from 6 to 10 hours depending on difficulty, certainly about the same kind of length you'd expect from a PlayStation 2 game like that. There are also some hidden paths to discover along the way that'll lead you to the game's collectible lost data entries, which will provide some lore on this world. If you missed any of these, there is a way of going back to stages via chapter select. There's also some light puzzle solving from time to time, and I thought these were pretty good. It helped break up the
guns and jumps.
Yeah, a couple of these had me stumped. What the do I do? My monkey brain wasn't designed for this. But overall, these stages are very much platforming gauntlets with combat encounters in between. What I enjoyed a lot about these levels though is the amount of gameplay gimmicks. In almost every chapter you'll be doing something a little different, like an on-rails Star Fox spaceship segment, Jak 3 car blitz throughout the desert.
We got the blowy-uppy tank goodness.
A 2D fighter. Jak and Daxter Precursor Legacy yak cow herding, let's go! Riding on a dinosaur. Hacking. Pew pew Ooh, air cannon. Nokia snake. This is also hacking. There's just always something different, and because the game has you mainly doing the Super Mario 64 thing most of the time, this helped keep the pace of the game fresh. Like at one point I was playing red light, green light with a giant cat, and I don't know what the fuck is even happening here.
Come into my rainbow world, it's magical, you'll see.
This song has been stuck in my head for days.
I'm going Fruit Loopy.
And of course we got the bosses. Yeah, I versed this massive mecha T-Rex thing at one point. That was pretty cool. It was a pretty fun boss fight. You know, you got the big circles on the ground to say, get the fuck out of that spot. You'll be moving and jumping and running and gunning and doing the stuff. And yeah, no, these are fun. I actually quite enjoyed the boss fights, especially the final one. For the story department, we've got two robots whose fates were brought together. There's an evil that threatens the known universe, and it's Exy and Chipset's job to save it, even if these two really couldn't be asked to do so in the beginning. We've got a pretty typical platforming duo here, though Exy is a very different character from a character like Ratchet, for instance, whose personality more so resembles Jack, and Chipset being this interesting crossover of Daxter and Claptrap from Borderlands. Speaking of Chipset, he's probably the most standout character in the game, for better or for worse. I'm fairly certain the devs intended for him to be this loud, obnoxious, and annoying individual, because they did a pretty good job in the writing and voicing department towards nailing this. By the way, this isn't me knocking the character, because yes, in the beginning I thought to myself, I don't know how I'm putting up with this guy for the next few hours, but by the end of the game, I came to actually really enjoy his character. This is an indie game, so the voice cast isn't going to be A-list. I think overall it's a fine job, giving me vibes of Sunday morning cartoons in both performance and writing. There's a few laughs here and there's some cool references. Yes, there's a wee bit of cringe and some twists, but the adventure is fun. It's the type of thing I'd expect from a PS2 Ratchet game, and I love that so much. I thought the narrative was fine. It's that to be expected, typical we've seen this narrative before type of setup that you come to expect from a sci-fi platformer. It didn't really leave me thinking, wow, this was insane, just good enough for what the game is trying to do. Honestly though, it's quite hard to find some issues with Akimbot, because I just had so much fun playing this. It was almost as if I was transported back to the early 2000s playing a PlayStation 2 action platformer. This is clearly the type of game that Evil Raptors, the devs, wanted to make, and they simply nailed it. And it's really impressive considering that this is their second game that they've made so far. There were, however, two performance-based issues that I came across. I was playing on PlayStation 5. The first one is screen tearing. There's a pretty bad case of screen tearing, along with a few second freezes every single time the game would come across a checkpoint and autosave. These are pretty minor things though and can be fixed via a patch, so hopefully that does happen. But overall, this is a great time. If you're a fan of PlayStation 2 action platformers, you grew up in that era of gaming, you are going to love this. This is nothing short of a nostalgia soup. I really hope that Akimbot turns out to be successful for Evil Raptor, just because this type of action platformer isn't too common nowadays. I'd love to see this turn into a proper franchise. However guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I thought more people needed to know about this game, especially if you are looking for a Jak and Daxter Ratchet and Clank fix. Be sure to subscribe to the channel to keep up with everything going on here, and check out my other garbage social media platforms. We now have a shop, so if you want to buy yourself a little t-shirt or a little hoodie, well, you can do that. Big thank you to my wonderful patrons. I hope you're all having a fantastic day, and we'll talk real soon.